All right, good evening. Welcome to the Sweet Talk. Today is Monday, May 13th, 2019. I am your host, Kim Matina. I am a Google certified trainer and a gold product expert in the Google for Education, CS First, and Jamboard Health Forum. And I am a technology teacher at the Gallery Township Middle School. And today I have on the show Laura Cahill. I feel like I know Laura because we've been following each other and on Twitter and on the new tool that I love, Wakelet. So Laura is an instructional technology coach at a public school in Massachusetts. She is a Google certified trainer and an ISTE certified educator. And I am so glad that she took the time to be on the show today. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I've
Oh, it's
really
my
learned a ton
pleasure.
from you just in the time that I've been learning about Google, like the last year and a half. So your resources have been really helpful to me.
Oh, thank you for telling me. I really appreciate that. That's the one thing that we never hear is like feedback. We
Right.
don't hear feedback. So when we hear it, when I hear it, I really appreciate it. So thanks for letting me know.
Of course, of course.
And I feel like we just connected through social media and now PLN on
hmm
Twitter and everything, and now I'm following you on Wakelet. I'm learning from you on Wakelet and in your blog. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your blog?
Sure. I think that what you and I do is really similar because we both believe in just sort of sharing and making each other better. Just sort of freely sharing and supporting, teachers have to support each other. And so I started my Google journey about a year and a half ago with my school district. And I think shortly after that, I said, I love this stuff. I love creating resources that people can use. I love the collaboration aspect of all of this. So I just wanted to just create resources for people to share. So I started a blog. I call it Engage Educate. So it's engage and educate together. Um, so I use that blog pretty much just to share resources. But I think for me, I was a visual art teacher for years. So I have that sort of creative aspect, and I love to try to figure out ways to use a tool differently than maybe it was intended. So every time I learn a new tool, I'm like, this is great. Now what can I do with it? So
Yeah.
I like to do a lot of that on my blog.
That's awesome. I'm glad because I blog also, and I feel
hmm
like people there's all different ways that people learn. They
Yes.
read, they watch videos like this, or they listen to podcasts, and everybody learns differently. So it's nice to give that type of variety in your resources because some people like to learn from a screencastify video
hmm
or GIF or a really quick you know um, screencast
hmm
and it's just having the variety there for your audience and for your viewers is valuable. So keep doing it, keep fighting, keep providing assistance and help because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be the leaders and the role models and
Yeah, and I really appreciate all the people I learned from and continue to learn from. So it's just sort of a way of, giving back and helping people who might be starting out as well.
yeah, that's what my motto is, pay it forward, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, honestly, like I have no problem telling people I don't know that. Oh,
Right.
thanks for sharing. I didn't know that. Like I have no problem admitting if I don't know anything. And I think, that's the authenticity of you and myself because, we're not afraid to be vulnerable and take a
Right.
risk and try
Right.
something new. So
There's no
thank you
way
for
to
telling me.
know all of this. Like you can't possibly. And just the best way to learn is just to keep sharing and figuring it out as we go.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, we should have a show just about that. Well, I know you want to talk about standard-based assessments in
Mhm.
Google Classroom, which I'm
Sure.
dying to hear how you do this. So why don't you talk about, how you started this and what your workflow is involved with?
Sure. So it really came about almost by accident. Again, I'm always looking for a new way to use a tool that maybe wasn't intended originally. And so teachers were so excited when the beta for the Google Classroom Gradebook came out, right? So, I mean, that's something that we were waiting for a long time. Our district doesn't have a standard grade book, so teachers were using, a variety of tools. And of course, we're still waiting for the full version to come out, and hopefully that will be really soon. But um, so when the beta came out, really exciting for everybody, and people were sharing about it a lot on Twitter. And I saw some criticism on Twitter, a couple of people saying, this grade book is really minimal. It doesn't give us a lot of options, and sort of criticizing the format of it. And one particular comment said, Google, you can do better because this doesn't give us an option to. This can't work for standards-based grading. And the second I heard that, it just popped into my head, and I thought, our classroom doesn't have to be just sets of assignments. It doesn't have to just be conversation. You can create a whole Google Classroom just for standards-based grading. So, I immediately I sort of took that comment that I saw on Twitter as a challenge, and I sat right down. And so the idea behind this is that you would create a dedicated Google Classroom just for the set of standard indicators that you have for your subject area and grade level. So the teacher can create a classroom, and then, um, I think one of the easiest ways to divide it is sort of to create a topic in the classwork tab for each of those big bucket ideas, and then to create an assignment in the classwork tab for each indicator. So ideally, what would happen then, it just came to me as something that could be possible, but I really wanted to play with it quite a bit first, um, because I started to think about how teachers could then really dive into what the standards are asking with the students. So I think it gives an opportunity for the teachers and students to then start having conversations about what the standards are really asking them to know and be able to do. I think that teachers are really well versed in standards, but I know that, when I was working in elementary school and middle school, I didn't really talk about the standards with my students very much. By the time I got to teach in an art classroom in high school, we would break down the standards together. And I think that I probably sold short my elementary and middle school students because I think that they could have really interacted with the standards, probably just fine if it's something that we did together.
So so what did you do to interact with, it, with the students at their level on the standards? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, so at the time that now I'm an instructional technology coach, so I'm not in the classroom anymore, but when I was teaching high school up until last year, I would present the standards as they were written, Massachusetts visual art standards as they were written to my students. And we did lots of activities around those at the beginning of the year, and then we would revisit them. So every student had copies of the standards. We would so I'd do all different activities. I'd have them work in small groups and come up with ways that they thought a student could demonstrate a particular standard, and then they would share out to each other in the groups. I would have students translate the standards because certainly, we've all read standards that we have to read 3 or 4 times. What is that asking me
Yeah,
to
what does
do?
that mean?
Yeah, yeah. So, if it's challenging for educators to translate, think about, freshmen in high school. But I think what this does is it opened up this whole conversation about what was expected of them. And they knew what I was grading them on. They knew that there was a basis in what they were being graded on. So I feel like if teachers use Google Classroom to do this, um, they're sharing the classroom with the students, and they're saying each standard is an assignment. And then what it's asking students to do is to choose work that they think best meets that assessment, what best meets that standard. So I think it gets into you know, really evaluating their own learning and metacognition, thinking about what was going through their head when they learned this. Do they think that they have met this standard? And then older students can probably attach um, their own work to the assignments. Maybe our younger, maybe primary students, teachers could find work with students together and then attach it to the assignments. So what it does really, now there's the gradebook. You can click on each student and see the list of work. It really creates like a digital portfolio showing how the students have met um,
That is
these
an awesome
indicators.
idea. I really like that. So I'm visualizing this now in
Hmm.
Google Classroom. So I go into Google Classroom and okay, I'm going to do the technology standards because
Yep.
that's what I'm most interested in.
Yep.
So I would create like, a topic for technology standard 8.1.
Yep.
And then in there, there's different strands. So there's strand A, and then there's indicators, A point A A.1, A.2, A.3.
Hmm.
So you're saying have a topic for 8.1 and then have another, well, you can define it in there, I guess, and then you can have another assignment for topic 8.1A1,
Yes. Yep.
right? And
Yep.
then define it in the description and then attach, well, you can actually make that like a material post,
Hmm.
right? And then
Yep.
at that point, it's a topic, and then you can create an assignment for that topic, which would be 8.1.A1,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And then that assignment aligns with that standard.
Exactly. So, each standard indicator becomes its own assignment, and then, the teacher and students, depending on the grade level, the content area, teachers could say everybody should attach one piece of evidence that meets this, or if you're not sure, maybe you want to attach a couple of pieces of evidence. And this is a great way for the teacher and the student to then sit down, whether it's every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks or 5 weeks, however your school and district have it set up, and to do that sort of informal conferencing. And then the student can say, I attached this piece of evidence for this standard, and then the student and teacher can have a conversation about that. So, and I just think that it creates this whole digital portfolio of work. So if you're meeting with the student's parents, you have evidence right there for the student, like this is what um, your child is able to do independently. This is what they are able to do with work. Um, I mean, with help. If you have a student who's maybe going through the SSP process, possibly for some support, you have evidence of that work there. So, but it involves the student, because then you're asking the student, one, the students have to understand what the standard is asking, and that's a conversation that can happen between student and teacher. And then students have to think about their own learning and see what fits it. So I'm
That's a
not in the
wonderful
classroom.
idea. That is great. I
Yeah,
love
I mean,
it.
we're trying it out with a group of teachers. So our district offers a train the trainer program to support teachers to get Google certification as a trainer. So we created a Google Classroom that has the candidates, that the trainer candidates, they can upload their evidence as they go. So it's us sort of saying, this is what Google's looking for, this is what the district is looking for as we mentor you through this process. And then those teachers upload their evidence and we're able to have a conversation about it. So it's worked out really nicely.
I really like that. Now that gives me a whole different perspective on how because I have to assess students in eighth grade. So I
Hmm.
create a digital portfolio for them and share it out with them. But it's basically because I'm pushing in, I don't have the luxury of my own class. So I have
Yes.
to push in and I have to, I have to make time with the teacher.
Hmm.
So for me, because I had to save time, I just used Google Slides as a digital
Sure.
portfolio, and then the kids just inserted their work in there. But
It's another great way to do it.
I just created a template and then shared it out with them in Google
Hmm.
Classroom. But I like your idea much better because the standards are attached to it.
Hmm.
So, like, I have a spreadsheet with all my standards and what assignments meet those standards. That Google Classroom is my file cabinet. I can have
Right.
everything in there and then
Mhm.
give give the other, like my supervisor, access to that classroom, and she can see exactly what I did, who turned it in, who didn't turn it in, what they turned in,
Right, right,
and I don't have to worry about it. So
right. And the gradebook
that's
piece
great.
now, now that we have access to that grade tab, you can really see at a glance. So you can open it up and say, oh, gee, look, 80% of students haven't attached anything for this particular standard that we, have been doing a lot of work in. So, where's the disconnect here? What do I need to do as a teacher to help them get to the place where they think that they've met this standard?
Yeah.
It's also great evidence for teachers. So as you go through the evaluation process, you have that grade book and that evidence to share with your evaluator. So I think it just meets a lot of different needs, and it was just something I came up with sort of accidentally. But um,
But it's definitely a productive method,
mhm.
because it's definitely, it's out of the box. Like I think it's a great idea, and I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna try it next year.
Oh, definitely, yeah, yeah. I would
Um,
love to hear how it works for you.
let you know, because, and I think also, which is another benefit of it, is like the teacher and the student can leave comments, private comments in the
Yes.
assignment in Google Classroom. So
Mhm.
your your um, support and feedback that way as well. Because sometimes if students aren't in school and they're working at
Yes.
home because they're sick or whatnot, you can give that type of feedback digitally. So that piece of it is there as well.
Right.
And it's a nice way to see at a quick glance. You can go right into an assignment, just say topic 8.1A1,
Mhm.
open up that assignment, and that meets that standard, and you can see right away which students didn't turn it in.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a quick glance of what you still need to do,
Yep, yep. I love
so
new workflows. I love things that
yeah.
find efficient workflows. And like you said, the feedback is great because you can leave private comments, you could leave class comments, you can comment on the student's work. So if it's a document that they upload, you can comment right there. You could do video feedback. So many people are now using Screencastify to record video feedback so the teacher can be looking at the student work and just leave the link to the video right there. So again, if a student is out, for an extended period of time, or if the teacher's doing that over the weekend, there's just so many ways to sort of increase the communication between the teacher and what the standards are expecting of the students. And I think, for me, as a parent and as a teacher, we've all seen these assignments where you sort of say like, why are they being graded on this?
Yeah.
It was a word search on a Friday afternoon and they didn't turn it in, so they got a zero. What, so something like this eliminates that because you're really just looking at, compared to the standards, what are students, able to do and demonstrate.
I think it holds the teacher and the student more accountable,
Definitely.
because everything is right there in black and white. Like you're not making this stuff up. This is
Hmm.
exactly what you're expected to do and to learn, and this assignment aligns with that.
Right.
Now, one question I have for you: what if a student created, an assignment,
Hmm.
and it hits multiple standards? Do you have that student hand in that work to those multiple assignments?
I mean, if it were me, um, and I'm thinking back to teaching visual art. So there were a lot of times, a lot of the things that we did in visual art were very project based. It was really the design thinking process, the artistic process from start to finish. So students may, certain parts of the process along the way may have met different standards, right? So there might have been like a research piece. So maybe it's not the finished product in all cases that meets the standard, but maybe it's something that the student did along the way. So everything doesn't necessarily have to have a final product. But I think that would be an agreement between the teacher and the students. I mean,
Did you
sure.
try that yet? Like, what is your experience with that?
So right now we're using it with teachers, and we're asking teachers to upload, individual dedicated specific things for each so
Okay.
that they're not using things, over and over. But, if I had a student say to me, of course, we've all had, I'm sort of picturing some of my really clever middle school students that I taught for 10 years, which is something that I really loved. And I'm picturing them saying, no, miss, I'm telling you, this meets, 17 different standards and I'm all done for the year. Um, I mean, that's not a technology problem. That's a bigger conversation to be had. But if a student could convince me that one piece of work, no matter what it was, whether it was a text or a image or video or project that met standards, and they could convince me, then
You would
who?
let them do that. You would
Yeah,
take a stab at it. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Some like I do projects too, and some of the assignments meet multiple standards,
Sure, sure.
So I was wondering how you would handle that in with Google Classroom if you would have the kids, turn that assignment in
Hmm.
that met those multiple, standards, or
Right,
just like one assignment for the cumulative project.
right. And maybe
It
it depends on
does depend.
the structure of your class. Like maybe if you had a lot of shorter assignments, you might say to students, I'd like to see 4 pieces of evidence for every indicator from all of you. So I can imagine that there's a whole people listening to this might be saying, oh, I already have 5 new ideas of ways that
Yeah.
I could use this differently. So
And
I
then
think that's the beauty of sharing like this.
yeah, and you know what else too? Like what I'm thinking too, like what you're saying as well. Like, you can track progress.
Hmm.
So you can like what I used to do is I used to create a spreadsheet and track progress in the spreadsheet and have the students fill out their knowledge before
Uh-huh.
they went through the topic and
Sure.
during and after, and then that spreadsheet you're tracking progress, and you can attach that as well
Yes.
to the assignment, which is aligned with the standard. I mean, you can use the
Sure.
spreadsheet too in there as well as a resource, but
Yeah.
it's just I think it really does lay it out very
Mhm.
nicely.
Yeah.
You know,
In our district, so in the Worcester Public Schools, in Massachusetts, we're the second largest city in New England. So we have almost 26,000 students, over 3,000 teachers, and our student population um, can be they move a lot from school to school. So something like this, because we're all working under the same domain, it would be really easy for teachers from one school to share with another teacher, to reach out to that other teacher and say, you're getting a student of mine this week, and this is what I've seen this student do, and this is what they still
yeah,
need to work on. So it's a great way for sharing. And of course, in our district, our students speak over 100 languages. So the beauty of having things digitally like this is that you can use Google Translate for
yeah.
things, and so it's while that's not the solution to everything, it's certainly going to break down a lot of barriers there. You
Yeah,
know.
exactly. Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I think having all these tools accessible and laid out for us and for the students is just a great way for them to be more engaged, take responsibility of their learning, be the owner of their education,
Hmm.
and you know, let them be responsible a little bit too. So I totally agree. I really, really love this idea, and I am going to try this out next year.
Oh, I'm so excited! Yeah, I can't
I
wait to
will
hear how it goes.
I'll let you know. Like I may end up using it. I'm gonna pilot it. I'm not gonna do it
Hmm.
for the whole entire, grade, but I'll pilot it with a small group of kids and
Sure.
see how it works out. And I'll let you know. I'll give you feedback. I'll let you know what I did, and
Yeah.
'cause I think it's a great way of looking at Google Classroom at a whole different perspective.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
to me, you just made me look at it like a filing cabinet, and
Hmm.
each assignment is like a folder,
Sure. Sure.
and the hanging file folder is my topic.
That's right, yeah, and
You
I
know
mean,
what I mean?
we've been doing portfolios forever. I mean, I had a portfolio when I was in 1st grade and 2nd grade, and,
Yeah,
it's just sort of a modern take on that kind of idea.
yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody uses a different tool. I mean, people use websites. a
Sure.
slide deck or whatnot. But
Seesaw, yeah, people are using all
yeah,
kinds of things, yep.
so using Google Classroom as your portfolio as well is another option, and you just put the twist on it. So I bet you got a lot of people thinking, and maybe hopefully trying it. Maybe they'll try it by the end of the school year. You never know.
Yeah, that would be great, and I would love to hear from people, like, I'd love to hear other twists that people have on it, and, maybe I'll do an update to the blog post and put some more ideas out there.
Yeah. So what is your Twitter handle so people could follow you?
It's at Engageducate, so it's EngagedUcate, Engageducate. And that's the same, that's my blog as well, so people can find me there, and, I'm on Twitter all the time and really easy to contact.
Yeah, so if you have any questions for Laura, you can contact her. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up the show and I'm going to share my screen so I could show people um, where all this information is going to be available. So if you go to my website at the Sweet Talk, SUITE talk.com, you can actually, oops, I typed it in wrong. Hold on. Sweet Talk. My microphone's in the way. So if you go to the
It's a
Sweet
nice
Talk,
microphone, though.
well, thank you. If you go to the sweettalk.com, that's SUITE talk.com, you can go to the episode page and I will have all of the links for tonight's show in a Wakelet collection. So if
Woohoo!
you, yay, woohoo,
I'm so
right? Wait, wait,
excited.
wait. So let me show it off. You click on the Wakelet link in the show notes. It comes up to this collection here. And Laura, you can I'll add your blog in here as well.
Oh,
But
great, thank you.
yeah, so here's tonight's episode. Here's the show notes. If you click on the show notes, you can read more about Laura in here. Here's her blog link and some information that she shared. And I will definitely put, the Wakelet link in there as well. Um, you can join the Sweet Talk community on Facebook. I have a flip grid that you can respond to continue the conversation. So I'm kind of showing off Wakelet and then giving you an example of how I'm using it for my show. So all of this is just different links to my YouTube channel, my podcast on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Play Music, and Google Play Music. And I'm
And on a
doing a
future episode, we'll be talking about how you can use Wakelet as a as
yeah,
a portfolio, maybe.
yeah. Well, that's going to be, I'm doing a show on Friday with my nephew on Wakelet. So tune into that one. That's going to be fun.
That's awesome.
But this is Wakelet. I love it. It's just a creation tool for all of your resources. Also, if you go back to my website, you can actually click on the guest page and you can fill out this guest form if you'd like to be on my show. Fill it out and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'm really so thankful and grateful. I just scheduled somebody for October. So, like, I just can't believe like my little show is just so popular. So, and this is just one way of helping others. So, I'm just thankful for that. So, if you want to be on, hit the gas tab. My idea board for Jamboard is still here. Please check it out and share your ideas for Jamboard. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm doing a little Flipgrid contest. The first person that's the 700th subscriber to YouTube will win some Flipgrid swag. So you can subscribe there. And I'm on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Podbean, and Google Play Music. So with that said, I'm going to go back to Laura. And here I am. Too much. That's too much information. I'm like
No, it's great because there's so
showing
many
off
different
Wakelet.
ways to get your information.
Yeah, and like I'm showing off Wakelet, and then I'm just like, there's so much, and you can continue to use it by using the extension. So I can't
Yes,
give too much away because
right.
I'm gonna be doing it on Friday with my nephew. So
That's
if
great.
you want to learn more about Wakelet, tune in on Friday. Um, but anyway, thank you for being on. I really appreciate it. I really learned a lot from you tonight, and your different way of thinking about Google Classroom and standard-based assessments. I think it's a great twist on you know, on using it, and I'm going to give it a try.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. So, till next time, have a great evening. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you later.